I am speaking with Alyson Chadwick. She's a stand-up comic and an activist, and you can find out more about her at alysonchadwick.com. Thank you so much for doing this show, Alyson.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I wanted to, I feel like there's two tracks. There's a serious track and a comedic track, and we're going to cover everything. We even have visual aids, so I think we're in good hands. And can we start with you talking about how you got into comedy?
Of course, I have been working in politics for a long time, and I do a lot of public speaking. And I always wanted to try comedy, but I saw this class called 5 Minutes to Funny at the DC Improv. I noticed that when I was doing a speech of any kind, I'd be very nervous for the first 5 minutes. So part of me wanted to take the class just so that I could not be nervous the first 5 minutes. But then I also wanted to try stand-up comedy. So that's how I got into it. I just went and took this class and I've been doing it ever since.
Can you give us a window into how you balance things, how you balance your life, your work, your comedy, all of that?
It's always a work in progress. I mean, for me, right now I'm working with several nonprofits that deal with genocide, and that's very heavy. So in the morning, throughout the middle morning or mid afternoon, I'm working on that, and then in the afternoon and evening, I work on my comedy, which is really allows me to do the genocide work at all because it's light and it adds balance to my life. I can't be all heavy, depressing stuff all the time. So the comedy helps me do the other stuff.
Now, to help us along, maybe to help me along, I have these visual aids, which I think are very helpful. I'm starting out with Paul Rusesabagina, who I
Rusesabagina. Yeah, it's hard to say his name.
I don't well I, the movie Hotel Rwanda came out in 2004, and I don't know how his name resonates with the general public. Maybe you can give me a handle on that. How do you feel? Is he a known entity to the general public as he should be, or
I don't think he's as known as he should be. I think, it's been a while since Hotel Rwanda came out. And I think at first that was people did, oh yeah, Hotel Rwanda. They might not have known Rusesabagina because it is sort of a mouthful. But I think that as time has passed since then, people have forgotten about the movie a little bit and don't necessarily know who he is or what his story is. And now that he was arrested in August, he was kidnapped from Dubai. He was told he was going to Burundi to speak at a church, and he was not going to Burundi. He ended up in Kigali, where he was arrested. His main crime really is speaking out against the current president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, and he's now on trial for a host of crimes, including terrorism. All of these crimes, by the way, he was accused of in 2010, and the Kagame regime brought their evidence to both the United States government and the Belgian government. Paul is a Belgian citizen, and they dismissed it because it was just not credible. So he's not in jail because he committed an actual crime. It's just because he's dared to criticize the president of Rwanda.
well, this makes me think of the mock trials that Putin, for instance, would put on, or other dictators, and you pretty much assume that this person's not going to be living much longer. I mean, this is an outrage, but how do you how do you get the word out there, or what do you think? What do you think you can do?
Well, I am trying to put together at some point a comedy fundraiser for his legal team. I'm having a little more difficulty with that than I expected. We've been using social media a lot. We've been trying to put pressure on the Belgian government to do something because he is a Belgian citizen. I mean, and he's a United States permanent resident. The idea that one government can take a citizen of another country and just kidnap them with impunity, that's the far-reaching implications of that are just, it's very chilling. I mean, nobody who's in Paul's situation as being a citizen of one country really is safe from Kagame if he can get away with this. And now Kagame is actively saying to Belgium, listen, if you help his family at all, even with consular issues, which is the very bare minimum they could do, it will impact our relationship. So I think he's been emboldened by the fact that the West has not done anything. and it's very frightening. So what we're trying to do is just use social media and traditional media. There's been a lot of articles in the newspaper. The George Clooney Foundation is watching the trial. So there it is high profile in some respects, but getting it through to the general public has been a challenge.
Well, we'll come back to Paul as we close. Now, of course, we have Joe Biden here. We have the tears and we have the laughter, so it kind of drives you crazy trying to balance the two. Sometimes a news item is just not funny. It's so serious, and sometimes it writes itself, and the news is funny to begin with. But with Biden, there's so many directions you can go in. Can you help us here? What would you like to start out with saying about Joe Biden?
Well, I think for me, I mean, and partly it's probably because I am a Democrat. I think a lot of what I find funny about Joe Biden is you've got people on the left who think that he's not doing enough, he's not progressive enough, and then people on the right who are convinced he's a socialist and we're going to all die. And it's just everyone just needs to turn the temperature down a little bit, and I think that's hilarious, especially when I hear right-wing people say that he's a socialist. I mean, that's just and our economy is going to tank and all these terrible things are going to, which they're not happening. I have a neighbor who's convinced that he's mentally disabled and is just feeble minded, and I don't see any evidence of that. But
I don't know how much the general public digests a typical late night talk show monologue, because even for me, who I love comedy, I don't watch it regularly, and I wonder about some issues like the infrastructure bill. How does Kimmel, how does Fallon, how does well Colbert I can see because he's more wonky, but how do you make that funny, or how do you galvanize an audience about that, educate them about it?
for me, the only funny thing about that is the Republican opposition. I mean, it's not like if a bridge collapses, it's only going to be Democrats or liberals on that bridge at the time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of projects in there that, Trump had infrastructure week every year of his presidency. And, that just meant they put a sign that said infrastructure week and nothing happened. And it's just watching their opposition is I find really funny, because it's going to help a lot of Republicans too. I mean, people have to get from point A to B. And after I lived in Florida for so long, where there's no income tax and a lot of the roads are toll roads, I could tell you that we need to have more investment in our infrastructure. Also, we're a third world country in a lot of ways. I mean, you fly to other Asia and you're in a high tech real airport. Here, go to LaGuardia. It's like going
Yeah.
back in time.
Yeah, I know. Well, I know exactly what you mean. And for me, I think of it, well, it's kind of old timey, it has character, but at the same time, it's crumbling, or it's not quite right. It's off. It needs to be improved.
Yeah. The Long Island Railroad it takes the same amount of time to get from Stony Brook to Manhattan today as it did when I was 6 years old. I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah. And here's our character all to himself, got COVID. We've gotten to know this little creature, or this microbe, or this virus rather. Anything you could tell us here that would maybe crack a smile, or is that even possible? Or
I think you can laugh about just about anything. For me, I've been interested in infectious disease because I'm weird for a very long time, and I first started getting nervous about it in 2006, and I was obsessed at the time with bird flu. So whenever
Mhm.
I'd go to lunch or go to the bathroom or something, people would put little pictures of birds on my computer or on somewhere near me because they thought, oh, that's never going to happen. So I kind of feel like we've known a global pandemic was going to happen a long time. And this one, I think it's changed the way I do a lot of things. Like I talk to my cats a lot more than I used to. And I talk back to myself as my cats. So whole new level of crazy has happened because of COVID.
Well, the whole mask wearing thing, I just I have my handy mask. I just throw it on and that's that. But there's people that defiantly they won't wear their mask, or they at the very beginning there were people who were finally wearing their mask. At the very beginning, I was getting used to the idea of wearing one. I didn't have it on. People would just scowl at me. This and
Yeah.
this covered face thing, it does play games with your mind.
Yeah, and also, you go to the doctor or something, you don't really ever see what they look like. But and I know people who think it's a mind control device and that the vaccine is Bill Gates' way of tracking all of us. And, I think Bill Gates has better things to do than track where I'm going.
Yeah. Oh, and
He,
here's a sinister little guy. There's Putin.
ah,
Now, what to say about him? I think that now that Trump is out of office, the Mueller report, all the things that grab bag of stuff that deservedly Trump needs to be accounted for. I don't know if that is going to ever happen because maybe this is a horrible theory to have, but maybe he's too big to fail.
Trump or Putin. I
Well,
mean,
both of them because Putin he's only in office because if he wasn't, he'd be in jail. If that's what I've read that he's done so many corrupt things and he has so much to account for that if he was not in office, that
right.
he'd have a lot to answer for. And uh, he's supposed to be one of the richest guys on the
Yeah.
planet.
I
He's a
was to say,
very corrupt little guy.
yeah, I think he might be too big to fail. I don't know so much about Trump. Um, I mean, I hope Donald Trump is not too big to fail just because he's done so many awful things. Personally, I think Russia did try to help him. I don't think they swayed the election either way. I think that they wanted him to get in there because they didn't like Hillary Clinton. And I'm sure they don't like Joe Biden. But
Yeah, well, they didn't succeed, but they certainly were actively engaged, and it was the Russian government, not some private entities, not
right.
oligarchs. It wasn't a bunch of oligarchs; it was the Russian government. So I don't know why that should even be up for debate. And here's my main man, not not uh, not as despicable as Putin, maybe, but up there, and corrupt
I don't
and
know. I think he's bad or worse than Putin. I mean, you look at what's happening to the Uyghurs. And now there's a big campaign against some of the brands that make their goods in that part of China, because a lot of the world's cotton is there, but also tomatoes, sugar. There's various kinds of silicon that's there. I mean, Nike, almost all of the athletic shoes that you can think of, Zara, that's clothing. They all are made there, and now there's a campaign against them in the United States and the West because of they're using this forced labor in China. And there's a counter campaign by China to use the brands that are made in the Uyghur region. So I think he's kind of a bad guy.
yeah. And there he is, the Trumpster in all his glory. It's just a nice little hand wave, and that look of his, where the supposed this mock authority he has.
I
I,
just think if really has the amount of money that he says he has, what's up with that hair? I mean, there's got to be something better they can do with his hair. I mean, if he's really a billionaire, then
yeah.
I don't understand Donald Trump. He doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I guess I don't know. The hair is like a signal that he's still in the game. He's a swinger type of dude. He's got the got the swagger. I think there's something to that. I don't know. Even his most ardent supporters question his hair. So, and then here he is, the Matt guy,
Matt
Matt
Gaetz,
Gaetz. Now
yeah.
uh, he was like right up there with that other. I forget his name. The guy, the wrestling guy, that crazy, creepy wrestler guy. He was a wrestling coach, and he stayed quiet about
Oh, yeah, I know you're talking about. I can't think of his name.
Scott something or other. Well, anyway, but both of them are horrible. There's others that are horrible too. But and then for this guy to get his comeuppance, he's gotten his comeuppance up his ears. It's pretty
Well,
crazy.
people on the Hill say he was just a scandal waiting to happen. Like the GOP has known about this for decades. It's not like, or for as long as he's been in Congress, probably not decades, but forever. And it's like he would show off all these pictures of these underage girls or whatever. Like, and you've been claiming to be the party of family values for how long? Like, I mean, I think it's kind of delicious that he's being taken down by his own hubris. Moscow
And
Mitch.
Moscow Mitch, I was thinking that. And he was saying how corporations need to keep quiet. If you aren't gonna toe the line, shut up.
Just keep writing the checks.
Yeah,
We're
but
fine with your money, just not with, you want to talk about something.
he's
He's such a
nearly.
gaslighter. It's like on one hand, he said he wanted his main goal or his main job was to keep Barack Obama a one-term president, and then he blasted Democrats for not working with Republicans. Like, what? And then he said if they get rid of the filibuster, he's like, we're going to be really mean to you, or something to that effect. Like, he's been so nice up till now. Like,
Okay, now here might be the light at the end of the tunnel, although at one point he wasn't especially wonderful. I mean, I don't remember him as being such a super great guy, but he was certainly an obstructionist to Obama.
and I read some of his, like, he had a health plan or a plan to deal with Medicare. And basically it was that old people or people on Medicare would negotiate their own rates with their insurance companies. Because just what you want, grandma and grandpa to be doing is fighting with Aetna, you know.
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't know where to start. I'll be there pretty soon. I
Yeah,
wouldn't
I
know where to
mean,
start.
my mom wouldn't know where to start. I mean, who does? It's just, but that was his main plan. There's me and him.
Yeah, and I noticed that his book has been uh, behind you. Paul Ryan, his whatever book he wrote.
I actually have it somewhere. I went to the book signing and I don't know. I love this picture. It just makes me laugh. People say that lady looks very angry, and I'm like, me, and I wasn't really angry. I just was a little overwhelmed.
Unsure, maybe.
I think I talked to him about Ebola or something. I don't know.
And here's John Boehner, who wasn't a total obstructionist. He in secret he was trying to work with Obama, so that there's something there to him. And his new book is out.
I think
And
he's doing a little revisionist history though, because he did say some things about Obama in public, that he was a Kenyan Muslim,
oh
and now
right,
he's like, "Oh, I never did that." But he's trying to look like he definitely is reasonable compared to Matt Gaetz and Jim Jordan.
Jim
Mark,
Jordan, yeah, right. But man, now is he the future of the Republican Party? I don't know. Either Paul Ryan or John Boehner. Who's the normal guy? Mitt Romney can only go up there so many times.
yeah, but at least he's in the Senate. These guys aren't even in office, so I don't know what they can do.
Well, I'm thinking about the next presidential run.
Oh
Who's
yeah, yeah. Mitt Romney can't do that. Paul Ryan maybe, um, but he has to do something to get himself back in the public sphere a little bit more, because people's memories fade quick. We have
yeah.
a very short attention span, so they need to really be out there doing stuff
Well, I
more than just drinking Merlot on Morning Joe.
I liked him on Morning Joe. I like Morning Joe.
I do like Morning Joe.
Now the problem with Joe, or I don't know, maybe it's not a problem, is that he talks so long that the person who's there to ask a question has only like a few seconds to answer
Oh, I
after
know.
he's pontificated forever.
Yeah, I think he could shut up a little bit more, and Mika gets a little shrill sometimes. That's why Willie Geist is there to kind of keep it on an even keel.
Yeah. Well, you're telling me beforehand about doing comedy shows during COVID, that you had a successful show recently at Governor's on Long Island. Can you
Right.
describe what your act is like? Or
It's mostly observational stuff that I talk about. Like, I talk about the Mets a lot because I'm a big Met fan, and now that I'm back in New York, people understand my pain of being a Met fan. I talk about my family and my house, and just various things that happen. I notice. Okay, for instance, my mom called me yesterday. My mom's got a PhD and an MPH. She's lived all over the world. And she called and said, I just went to this great lunch. It was at this very fancy, elegant restaurant. And I'm thinking, where's that? The Cheesecake Factory. And I'm like, you've been in Florida too long if that's where your bar for elegant is. So that's the kind of thing I make fun of.
They have generous portions though, so
Of crap. I mean, like I'd rather have a smaller portion of something that tasted good. And their menu was like 300 pages long. Like, how can anybody be good at all of those dishes? They can't.
well
Like, why not so much Gordon Ramsay?
that appeals to a lot of Americans. They want it big, go big or go home.
Yeah, that's why we've got this obesity problem that we have.
um, Now, tell us a little bit about the organization you work with, No Business with Genocide.
No Business with Genocide is a coalition that is seeking to stop companies from making money from mass atrocities and genocide. So the several campaigns we're working on are the Uyghurs. There's a end forced labor campaign, it's forced fashion labor or labor fashion. We're trying to get Zara, which is a clothing company, and various other companies that do produce their goods in the Uyghur part of China. We're trying to get them to stop that. We're also working on the situation in Myanmar. There are a number of, like Chevron, for instance, is a big supporter of the military in that country. And not that they do a lot of business. That's how the military there makes a lot of its money from oil and gas. So we're trying to get American companies to divest from that situation. We're working on both a campaign for the Rohingya, who have been targeted by the military for years, and just in general, after the military coup on February 1st, we're trying to raise awareness of the situation and get people like Beyonce works with Adidas, and we want her to support the movement in Myanmar, because it's the garment workers are the backbone of what we're calling the civil disobedience movement to bring democracy back to that country. So those are some of the stuff, and then we're working on freeing Paul Rusesabagina again in Rwanda. And I try to raise awareness in general about genocide because people think of it as something that happened, during World War II, during the Holocaust, and then it ended, never again, but it's happened a lot since then. I just had an article published in the Gainesville Sun on Sunday about the current problems of genocide.
Well, I would urge everyone to revisit, or if you haven't ever seen it, to see Hotel Rwanda as just a stepping stone to learning. That movie's maybe it was a Hollywood production, of course, but it really moved me, and I feel ashamed. I really wasn't remembering my facts. I remember that the Clinton administration totally dropped the ball, and I think that was because they were embarrassed by like what happened in Somalia, if I remember right.
It's partially that, and I think like I worked at the UN in for 2 years in DC, and I think Dee Dee Myers came out and said acts of genocide are happening. Um, we're not the only one that dropped the ball, though. I mean, Kofi Annan, which is by the way how he pronounced his last name, he dropped the ball too. He was the head of the Department of Peacekeeping Operations at the UN, and the UN totally dropped the ball. So I think people don't want to acknowledge genocides when they're happening, like what's happening to the Uyghurs or the Rohingya, or there's just Genocide Watch has a number of situations around the globe that are current emergencies, and it's just easier to go, oh, we're so sorry we didn't do anything, next time, and then next time we don't do anything either. So that's part of why I'm so passionate about what I do.
Well, thank you for taking this time, Alison. I think we've covered as much as my little brain can handle. I don't have any other questions for you, but
Okay.
we met through Laughing Buddha, and I was able to interview a very gracious gentleman, John Reynolds, our instructor for the late night comedy writing workshop. And Laughing Buddha is just a godsend. I'm sure you would agree with that.
Oh, absolutely. I'm doing their Zoom open mic on Friday.
Oh, and there's also the Saturday one that they kept talking about.
Oh, right. Yeah, I like that one. Saturday, I'm doing a live show at Gateway Comedy in Ronkonkoma, New York at the Clarion. So I won't be doing the Laughing Buddha one that night, but super excited to get back on the actual stage. So much fun.
Do you have other gigs lined up, or how do you schedule yourself?
Well, I just got vaccinated my first Pfizer shot, so I was giving it a little bit of time. I guess not too much time. Uh, I just reached out to some bookers. So this week, Saturday, I have the Clarion in Ronkonkoma. On the first, I'm going to be back in Ronkonkoma. I have to get the details for that, and then I'm going to be going into the city to do open mics and see if I can get booked on some shows in there. Now that I'm partially vaccinated, and I'm just so eager to get out and be around people again.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.